I gotta say, reading this quote in literally the first lecture of our semester sort of threw me for a loop. Unless sounds are remembered by man, they perish, for they cannot be written down. All I could think of in the wise words of Dwight Schrute was false. I mean, everything we learn about music these days is written down, from the notes on the staff and Roman numeral analysis to pop chords and dynamic and rhythmic markings. Literally all of it is put on paper. In the modern day, if you're not writing it down, you're playing chess. Or you make a mistake and you call it chess. Just kidding. Love chess. Anyways, the idea that our current understanding of music has grown so much in the past 1.5 millennia really intrigued me. So I wanted to look at the man whose quote kicked it all off for me, and that is the man, the myth, the legend, Isidore of Seville. But first, let's take a step back in history, back to the 3rd century, when Roman Emperor Diocletian has control of the whole Roman Empire, which includes the Iberian Peninsula, and he decides, much to the chagrin of all history teachers everywhere, to divide the empire into multiple provinces. So, side note, thank you Diocletian for teaching us what not to do. So luckily a strong Catholic Church takes hold in Spain, but in the 5th century, invasions from the Visigoths, Byzantines, and Arabs begins. And right before Isidore is born, the Visigoths have taken control of Spain. They're not Roman Catholics, the people who lived in Spain were, and so there's a lot of conflict. Think of the my husband is not Christian, but my parents very much are sort of dilemma, and multiply it by 1,000. Much worse. So it's against the background of such turmoil that Isidore enters the picture. And I just think it's interesting to point out that often historical figures are said to have been born in a time of great prosperity or a time that generally sucked. And we assign narratives to lives after a lot of time has passed. But anyways, I digress. So Isidore of Seville is born in the year around 570 in either Cartagena or Seville. Apparently there's some debate as to where he was really born, but for our purposes, not super important. He has 3 older brothers, and he's educated by his eldest brother, Leander, who is also the Bishop of Seville. So this gives me major 19 Kids and Counting vibes, with the older siblings educating the younger siblings, but it's a different time, so it's all fine. In any case, Isidore is a very learned man, and it's interesting to point out that he most likely didn't have access to classical sources, and rather he learned from secondhand sources and anthologies. So the fact that he knew so much is impressive, but it's even more impressive how he learned it. In the year 600, Isidore succeeds his brother as Bishop of Seville, and he's really influential in reuniting his country. He runs a very tight Catholic ship, Captain Von Trapp, anyone? By increasing the number of Catholic seminaries and schools, and he also helps establish the basis of Spanish constitutional law at the Councils of Toledo in 633. So he helps turn Spain from a divided country into a prominent figure in education, order, and culture, and by doing so really offers hope and guidance to other countries that are battling barbarian invasions. I think that would be a fine legacy to leave, but like any solid infomercial out there, wait, there is more. So Isidore takes all this classical knowledge he has and he writes a lot of writes many works himself. In terms of religious writing, he composes biblical introductions, defenses of Catholicism, and rules for religious life. He also writes a history of barbarian invasions, and most notably, an encyclopedia of sciences that is studied for the next 900 years. 900 years. No wonder he is called the schoolmaster of the Middle Ages. Another claim to fame for Isidore, this is after his death, is that he's canonized as the patron saint of the internet. I always find it interesting when saints are associated with concepts that didn't even exist during their lifetime. It's like, congrats! We honor you forever by tying you to something you never experienced or imagined. But there you go, someone has to do it, right? And lastly, but certainly not least, he seemed to be a really solid guy. He would house the poor and homeless in his own home 24/7. So he was a bishop, but ladies, he was the full package. And as we come to a close, circling back to the quote that started it all, I find it somewhat ironic that Isidore couldn't imagine written music considering he was, a writer. However, he does serve as a wonderful example of the evolution of music and how something so abstract as sound could go from not being imagined to being written to that's what we do today. So what a testament to the flexibility of the human brain. So I hope you learned something about a guy you had never heard of before, because I certainly did. And while I stood at odds with his first quote, I have nothing to disagree with this one. Nothing exists without music, for the universe itself is said to have been framed by a kind of harmony of sounds, and the heaven itself revolves under the tone of that harmony. See you next time, friends.